You often think of aging as an inevitable decline, a slow unraveling of memory, energy, and resilience. But what if that narrative is only partly true? What if the brain and body are far more capable of renewal than we've been led to believe? Here's what the research shows. Aging is not just a matter of time passing. It's a matter of choices compounding. From a neuroscience perspective, many of the systems that decline with age, like neuroplasticity, mitochondrial health, hormonal balance, and emotional regulation, can actually be strengthened even in our 50s, 60s, and beyond. The key lies in the daily behaviors that either signal the brain and body to thrive or to fade. One surprising study from Harvard found that adults who adopted just 5 consistent lifestyle habits, like regular movement, nutrient-dense eating, and quality sleep, lived over a decade longer on average than those who didn't. But longevity wasn't the most remarkable part. It was health span, how long they remained vibrant, mentally sharp, and independent. That made the difference. And that's where the science gets exciting. You see, the brain doesn't stop adapting after 50. In fact, under the right conditions, it rewires in powerful ways. Neural growth factors like BDNF, brain-directed neurotrophic factor, which support memory, mood, and cognitive agility, are still produced in later decades. Mitochondria, the energy engines of our cells, can regenerate. And psychological flexibility, our ability to stay centered and resilient in the face of stress, can increase with age if trained. That's what this video is about, not denying aging, but decoding it. Understanding the 6 golden habits, grounded in neuroscience and behavioral science, that can radically shift your brain chemistry, cellular health, and even how you feel in your own skin after 50. You'll discover how simple rituals like timing your light exposure, reframing your internal self-talk, or tweaking the way you move can activate biological pathways that promote youthfulness, energy, and clarity. And you'll walk away with tools, clear, science-backed behaviors to start integrating today. Because staying young isn't about chasing youth. It's about signaling your brain and body that the best years aren't behind you. They're still being built. Think about the last time you felt completely dialed in, mentally sharp, emotionally steady, physically energized. Chances are it wasn't just because you had a good night's sleep. It's likely because your circadian rhythm, your body's 24-hour internal clock, was actually aligned with the demands of your day. Here's what most people don't realize. Your circadian rhythm isn't just about sleep. It's a master control system orchestrating hormone release, gene expression, body temperature, and even immune function. When it's in sync, you feel younger, stronger, and clearer. When it's out of sync, which happens easily with late night screens, skip meals, or erratic sleep, everything from metabolism to mood starts to fray. A pivotal 2017 paper published in Cell outlined how nearly every cell in the body contains a molecular clock. These clocks regulate thousands of genes, many of which are involved in inflammation control, energy metabolism, and cellular repair. All central to healthy aging, and here's the twist. These clocks take their cues not just from light, but also from food timing, exercise, and even temperature. So how do we train these internal clocks to work for us, especially after 50? Let's start with light. Your brain's master clock, located in the suprachiasmatic nucleus, is set primarily by natural light exposure, especially in the first 30 to 60 minutes after waking. When you step outside and get direct sunlight, photoreceptors in your eyes signal to your brain it's morning. Time to ramp up cortisol, suppress melatonin, and turn on alertness. Miss this signal, and your sleep, focus, and hormone rhythms suffer all day. A simple tool to apply is this. Get 5 to 10 minutes of natural light within 30 minutes of waking, even on cloudy days. It sounds small, but this habit anchors your circadian rhythm more powerfully than any supplement. Now let's talk food. Studies from the Salk Institute, including work by Dr. Sachin Panda, show that time-restricted feeding, or eating all meals within an 8 to 10 hour window during daylight hours, can reset circadian genes and improve metabolic health, even without changing what you eat. This is because your liver, pancreas, and gut all run on circadian timers. Eating late at night when your system is winding down sends contradictory signals promoting fat storage, glucose spikes, and inflammation. The protocol here is straightforward. Start your eating window within 1 to 2 hours of waking and aim to finish your last meal 3 hours before bed. Movement also plays a role. A brisk walk in the morning, especially if done outside, acts as a Zeitgeber or time cue, reinforcing that it's daytime and metabolism should be active. The combination of movement and light works synergistically to activate wakefulness-promoting pathways in the brainstem and basal forebrain. Have you noticed how much harder it is to fall asleep after a day of artificial lighting, no movement, or late-night eating? That's not just fatigue, it's circadian misalignment, and it stacks over time, accelerating biological aging at the cellular level. But the upside is powerful. When you begin aligning light, food, and movement with your circadian rhythm, you're not just improving sleep, you're optimizing mitochondrial function, hormonal timing, and even emotional regulation. In essence, you're telling your brain and body, I'm living in harmony with time. And this is crucial after 50 because aging naturally shifts circadian signals. Melatonin gets weaker, cortisol patterns blur, and sleep becomes more fragile. But by reinforcing strong external cues through these habits, you retrain your internal clock to stay sharp. So here's your challenge today. Step outside first thing in the morning, eat within a set window, and move your body early. These are small, repeatable acts that ripple into massive physiological shifts over weeks and months. Because youth isn't just about skin or joints. It's about rhythm, and rhythm, backed by neuroscience, is something you can reclaim. If there were a single prescription that could sharpen your memory, boost your mood, lower inflammation, and reverse signs of aging, it would be movement. But not just any movement. Not just long gym sessions or structured workouts. We're talking about frequent, intentional movement sprinkled throughout your day, especially after prolonged sitting. And here's why. Your brain and body treat stillness like a threat. Let's look at the neuroscience. When you sit for long periods, especially more than 30 to 60 minutes, circulation slows, glucose regulation dips, and your brain receives less oxygenated blood. This reduces activity in regions like the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for focus, decision-making, and mood regulation. But here's the powerful part. Even 2 to 3 minutes of light movement, like walking, stretching, or doing bodyweight squats, can reverse that decline. A 2016 study published in Diabetologia found that interrupting sitting with 5-minute walks every 30 minutes significantly improved insulin sensitivity and reduced post-meal blood sugar spikes in adults over 45. This matters because blood sugar instability isn't just about energy crashes. It's linked to accelerated aging, brain fog, and chronic inflammation. What's happening in your brain when you move is even more compelling. Movement, especially rhythmic aerobic motion like walking, stimulates the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, often called miracle growth for the brain. BDNF supports the survival of neurons, encourages the growth of new synapses, and is directly tied to memory, mood, and cognitive flexibility. Another fascinating insight, the hippocampus, the region of the brain responsible for learning and memory, tends to shrink with age. But regular physical activity, even light activity, has been shown to increase hippocampal volume. This effect is so strong that a meta-analysis in PNAS concluded aerobic exercise can literally reshape aging brains to resemble those of younger individuals. So what can you do? Here's a simple protocol. 9 minutes postprandial. Set a 30-minute timer during work or leisure hours. When it goes off, stand up and move for 2 to 5 minutes. Walk a hallway. Do heel raises. March in place. The key is consistency, not intensity. Another tool, after meals, especially lunch and dinner, take a 10-minute walk. This is known as a postprandial. It lowers blood glucose, improves digestion, and signals to your nervous system that you're still active and metabolically engaged. Now, I get it. You might already be doing your morning walk or gym session. That's great. But what the science shows is this: how often you interrupt your sitting may be even more important than how long you exercise in one block. Think of it this way. Your brain evolved in a body that was always in motion: gathering, hunting, craft, moving. When we sit for hours without interruption, we're sending an outdated signal: conserve energy, downregulate brain activity, prepare for rest. That's the opposite of what you want in midlife and beyond. Here's something empowering. These microbursts of movement are entirely within your control. They don't require a gym membership or extra time. They just require awareness and repetition. And the more often you move, the more your brain benefits. Studies show that movement increases dopamine, the neurotransmitter linked to motivation and drive, and reduces levels of pro-Amazonian cytokines, which are elevated in both aging and depression. If this insight is helping you, consider subscribing, because everything we share here is about helping you move through life with more clarity, energy, and confidence. Let's finish with a challenge. For the next 3 days, break every hour of sitting with 3 minutes of movement and take a 10-minute walk after dinner. Observe your sleep, your focus, and even your emotional tone. You'll likely notice a difference in less than 72 hours. Because youthfulness isn't just a look. It's a rhythm of movement, one that tells your body, I'm still growing, I'm still here. We often treat stress like a villain, something to be avoided, suppressed, or medicated away. But the truth is more nuanced and far more empowering. From a neuroscience perspective, stress isn't inherently harmful. In fact, when applied correctly, it's one of the most powerful tools for brain growth, emotional resilience, and even longevity. Let's break this down. The brain's stress response is controlled by a network called the HPA axis: hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and adrenal glands. When we experience a stressor, whether it's physical, like cold exposure, or psychological, like a looming deadline, this system activates, releasing cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones prepare us for action. Heart rate increases, attention sharpens, glucose is released for quick energy. But here's the key. It's not the stressor that determines the damage. It's the recovery and interpretation. Chronic, unrelenting stress without recovery leads to inflammation, sleep disruption, and cognitive fatigue. But acute, time-limited stress followed by recovery, that's a training signal, one that strengthens the brain and body. A 2013 study published in Frontiers in Human Neuroscience showed that individuals exposed to short bouts of controlled stress, such as public speaking or cold water immersion, experienced a boost in prefrontal cortex activity, the region responsible for emotion regulation and executive function. These stressors actually trained the brain to become more adaptable. One powerful analogy is this. Think of stress as weight training for your nervous system. Just as muscles grow through challenge followed by rest, your brain becomes more resilient through exposure followed by integration. So how do we use this to stay young? Let's explore a few science-backed protocols. Cold exposure, such as a 1 to 2 minute cold shower or brief ice bath, activates the sympathetic nervous system in a way that increases dopamine by up to 250%, as shown in a 2022 study published in Neuroscience and Biobehavioral Reviews. This neurochemical surge doesn't just feel good, it sharpens focus, reduces inflammation, and builds stress tolerance. Breath work, particularly forms like cyclic sighing or box breathing, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest mode. Practicing this daily trains your vagus nerve, which plays a critical role in calming the body after stress and improving heart rate variability, a key marker of biological youth. Time-restricted challenges like intermittent fasting or intense but brief exercise, e.g., HIIT, provide hormetic stress, a low-level challenge that triggers adaptive growth at the cellular level. These practices upregulate genes related to longevity and mitochondrial resilience. Here's a question to reflect on. When was the last time you intentionally challenged your nervous system and recovered? Most of us either live in chronic low-level stress with no relief or avoid discomfort entirely. But the sweet spot lies in deliberate, manageable challenges that train your brain to rise, recover, and grow. Mindset also matters. Dr. Alia Crum at Stanford has shown in multiple studies that how we interpret stress changes our physiological response to it. If we believe stress is harmful, we're more likely to suffer its negative effects. But if we view it as a challenge, a signal to grow, we produce more DHEA, a hormone that buffers against cortisol's downsides and supports brain plasticity. So here's your challenge today. Pick one controlled stressor, a cold shower, a breathwork session, or a time-restricted workout, and use it as a mental gym. Feel the discomfort, then focus on the recovery. You're not breaking yourself down. You're training your nervous system to be younger, stronger, and more adaptable. And if this kind of science-backed reframe is valuable to you, make sure you subscribe. Because we're building a community grounded in growth, not fear. Because stress, when respected and trained, is not the enemy of youth. It's one of its greatest catalysts. We often think of sleep as downtime, a passive state of unconsciousness. But in reality, sleep is one of the most active, restorative, and neuroprotective processes the brain engages in. And after age 50, it becomes not just important, but foundational to staying cognitively sharp, hormonally balanced, and biologically young. Here's what the research shows. Sleep is when your brain cleans itself. During deep, non-REM sleep, the glymphatic system, your brain's waste clearance mechanism, flushes out metabolic byproducts, including beta amyloid, a protein strongly linked to Alzheimer's. Without sufficient deep sleep, these toxins accumulate, impairing memory and accelerating neurodegeneration. But this isn't just about memory. It's about recovery, hormone balance, and cellular repair. During sleep, your body releases growth hormone, balances cortisol, and initiates muscle and tissue regeneration. Miss out on quality sleep, and you don't just feel tired, you age faster. And here's the twist. As we get older, sleep becomes more fragile. Melatonin secretion decreases, circadian rhythms shift earlier, and deep sleep diminishes. But this decline is not inevitable. It's often behavioral and reversible with the right tools. Let's start with a powerful principle. Your sleep tonight starts this morning. That may sound odd, but the timing and quality of your light exposure, your caffeine intake, and how you wind down in the evening all determine the depth and duration of your sleep. Here's a neuroscience-backed protocol. Morning light exposure within 30 to 60 minutes of waking sets your circadian rhythm and increases nighttime melatonin production. We covered this earlier, but it bears repeating. It's one of the most effective sleep regulators, especially after age 50. Cut caffeine after 12 o'clock p.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. Caffeine has a half-life of 5 to 6 hours in most adults, longer in those over 50. Even if you fall asleep easily, it can reduce deep sleep by up to 30%, silently impairing brain recovery. Cool your core to deepen sleep. Your body needs to drop about 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit, 0.5 to 1 degree Celsius, in core temperature to fall and stay asleep. That's why cooler environment around 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. In Celsius, it's equivalent to 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. Improve deep sleep. Tools like a warm shower, 60 to 90 minutes before bed, which triggers surface vasodilation and cooling afterward, can aid this process. Time magnesium supplementation wisely. Magnesium threonate or glycinate, taken 1 to 2 hours before bed, can reduce sleep latency and increase sleep quality by calming NMDA receptors in the brain, essentially lowering neural excitation. Avoid bright artificial light within 90 minutes of bed, especially blue light, which suppresses melatonin. Use warm tone lighting or blue blocking glasses in the evening. Think of light as a drug. In the morning, it wakes you up. At night, it delays sleep onset. Now let's talk emotional recovery. Sleep is your brain's emotional reset button. REM sleep, the phase where dreams occur, is when emotional memory processing happens. It's where the amygdala, your emotional alarm system, is recalibrated. Without adequate REM, your emotional reactivity increases, which is why poor sleep is so tightly linked to anxiety, depression, and low resilience. Have you ever noticed how a problem seems more solvable after a good night's sleep? That's not imagination, it's neurobiology. So here's your evening wind-down protocol. 1 hour before bed, dim the lights, shut down stimulating inputs like work emails or intense TV, and transition into slower activities. Reading, stretching, journaling. You're not just helping yourself relax, you're signaling your nervous system it's safe to let go. Aging doesn't mean poorer sleep, but it does require greater intentionality. With the right cues, your brain can still produce deep, restorative, youth-protecting sleep. And if you're finding value in these science-backed strategies, consider subscribing. We dive deep every week to give you tools that actually move the needle on how you feel, think, and live. Because the secret to staying young isn't just staying active, it's also knowing when and how to rest. If you want to stay sharp, energized, and emotionally balanced after 50, you have to start treating food not just as fuel, but as chemical information for your brain. Because what you eat doesn't just affect your waistline, it affects your neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to grow, rewire, and adapt. And after midlife, this process doesn't shut down. In fact, with the right nutrients, it can stay surprisingly robust. Let's start with this. The adult human brain, even at 70 or 80, is still capable of forming new synaptic connections. But those connections require raw materials, amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals to form. Think of your brain like a building. Without high-quality bricks and mortar, you can't remodel the structure. So what does the research say? Omega-3 fatty acids, especially DHA, are foundational. They make up a large portion of brain cell membranes supporting fluidity, signaling, and neuroprotection. A 2014 meta-analysis in neurology showed that higher omega-3 levels were associated with larger brain volume in aging adults, particularly in areas related to memory and cognition. Magnesium threonate has been shown in rodent and early human studies to enhance synaptic density and improve short and long-term memory. Unlike other forms of magnesium, it crosses the blood-brain barrier efficiently, making it a go-to for cognitive support. Choline, found in eggs and organ meats, is a precursor to acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter essential for memory, focus, and motor control. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that higher choline intake is associated with better cognitive performance and reduced risk of dementia. Polyphenols, found in berries, green tea, and dark chocolate, act as antioxidants and anti-inflammatories. They modulate signaling pathways in the brain that affect learning and long-term potentiation, the biological basis of memory. But this isn't just about what to take, it's also about how consistently you feed your brain. A powerful tool is what researchers call nutrient stacking, combining brain-supportive foods across the day in ways that reinforce each other's effects. For example, breakfast, pasture-raised eggs with avocado and blueberries, rich in choline, healthy fats, and polyphenols. Lunch, a fatty fish like salmon with leafy greens and olive oil, delivering omega-3s and phytonutrients. Dinner, turmeric-spiced lentils or wild rice with a side of sautéed spinach, providing magnesium, antioxidants, and fiber to feed the gut-brain axis. Speaking of the gut, that's another key piece. Your microbiome plays a direct role in neurotransmitter production, especially serotonin and GABA, which influence mood and sleep. A study in Nature Microbiology found that certain probiotic strains were correlated with reduced brain inflammation and improved cognitive flexibility. So another protocol to apply: include fermented foods like kefir, sauerkraut, or kimchi 2 to 3 times per week, and feed your gut bacteria with prebiotic fibers like oats, garlic, and asparagus. Now, it's worth noting supplementation can help, but it's not a replacement for nutrient-dense eating. That said, if you're over 50, and especially if you follow a restricted diet, you might consider a high-quality omega-3 supplement, 1 to 2 gram EPA/DHA daily, magnesium 3 and 8 before bed, a phosphatidylserine or choline complex for cognitive support. One more insight: hydration matters. Even 1 to 2% dehydration can reduce memory, processing speed, and mood. As we age, thirst signals weaken, so drinking before you feel thirsty is a longevity habit. Have you ever noticed brain fog in the afternoon and reached for caffeine, when what you really needed was water, electrolytes, and nutrient support? These small gaps add up over time. But so do the habits that close them. So here's today's challenge. Start 1 brain meal a day. Intentionally combine 3+ neurosupportive nutrients. Do this for 7 days. Then check in with how you feel, mentally, emotionally, even socially. Because your brain doesn't just reflect your age. It reflects how well it's being nourished. Of all the habits we've explored so far, sleep, movement, light, nutrients, none are more powerful or more underestimated than this. The way you speak to yourself literally shapes your brain. That's not metaphorical, it's neurobiological. Let's unpack the science. Every thought, every internal monologue activates specific neural pathways. Over time, these patterns become default circuits reinforced by repetition. If you constantly think, I'm slowing down, it's too late for me, or I don't have the energy I used to, your brain takes those signals as instructions, shaping your perception, your behavior, and even your biology to align with them. Dr. Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan has shown that inner speech, especially when it's self-distanced, using your name instead of I, can significantly improve emotion regulation and cognitive performance. This isn't just motivational fluff. It's prefrontal cortex training, strengthening your ability to observe thoughts rather than be ruled by them. In other words, your inner voice is your brain's coach. The quality of that coach determines whether you stay resilient or crumble under pressure. And this ties directly to aging. A groundbreaking longitudinal study from Yale psychologist Dr. Becca Levy found that people with positive beliefs about aging lived an average of 7.5 years longer than those with negative views. Not because of genetics, but because their beliefs shaped behaviors, stress responses, and even gene expression related to inflammation and immunity. Here's the insight. Identity drives biology. When you believe you're someone who is still learning, adapting, and contributing, you activate the brain's reward and motivation circuits, particularly the dopaminergic pathways in the midbrain. These systems are crucial for drive, curiosity, and action, all markers of youth, regardless of age. So, how do we strengthen this inner voice? Start with a daily cognitive priming tool called identity rehearsal. Each morning, take 60 seconds to speak or write a phrase that reflects who you're becoming, not just who you've been. Examples: I am becoming sharper and more focused every day. My actions today support long-term clarity and energy. I am building a younger brain through what I choose. This isn't toxic positivity. It's neuro-linguistic training. You're embedding intention into your neural code. Next, we bring in purpose. Studies in JAMA Psychiatry and The Lancet have shown that a strong sense of purpose is associated with lower all-cause mortality, reduced risk of Alzheimer's, and better immune regulation. Purpose gives the brain a target, and when the brain has a target, it organizes energy around it. Here's a question for you. What do you still want to create, contribute, or explore, Not in spite of your age, but because of it. Purpose isn't always grand. It might be mentoring your grandchildren, volunteering, mastering a skill, or improving your health so you can fully engage in your relationships. Tie that purpose to your identity and you've got something powerful. I'm a learner. I'm a guide. I'm proof that growth never ends. Finally, let's address social language. The words we use in conversation. I'm too old for that. My memory's not what it was at my age. Reinforce neural pathways just as strongly as inner dialogue. If you catch yourself using limiting phrases, pause, reframe, speak as the version of you that is still growing, because biologically, you still are. So here's your final challenge. For the next 7 days, rehearse one empowering identity phrase each morning and eliminate one limiting phrase from your vocabulary. Notice how it shifts your posture, your decisions, even your energy. Because long after supplements fade and routines change, it's your internal narrative, your self-directed story that guides your aging trajectory. And the best part, you're the one writing it. Let's take a moment to step back. What you've just explored isn't a list of life hacks. It's a blueprint, grounded in neuroscience, for reshaping how your brain and body age. We began with your circadian rhythm, the internal clock that sets the tone for everything, from your energy to your immune function. And we saw how simple cues like morning sunlight and meal timing can reinforce the rhythm of youth deep inside your cells. We talked about movement, not as punishment or performance, but as a signal. Each time you interrupt long sitting, each time you take a short walk after eating, you're activating brain growth, stabilizing blood sugar, and protecting your future self. We reframed stress, recognizing it not as something to avoid, but something to train with, like a mental gym. With cold, breath, or brief fasting, you're teaching your brain to recover faster, adapt better, and become more resilient. Then came sleep, the nightly reboot where memories are filed, toxins cleared, and tissues repaired. And we saw how it's not about hours, but depth, about temperature, light, and routine. These things matter even more as we age, and they're within your reach. We looked at nutrition through a different lens, not just macros and calories, but neuroplasticity. You learned how omega-3s, choline, magnesium, and polyphenols literally become your thoughts, your clarity, your focus. Every bite is a biological message. And finally, we explored the most subtle and powerful tool of all, your inner voice. Because nothing rewires the brain more consistently than what you say to yourself. Your self-talk, your purpose, your identity. These shape your neural architecture just as much as any workout or supplement. Now here's the deeper truth. None of these habits work in isolation. They reinforce one another. Morning movement improves sleep. Sleep sharpens focus. Focus strengthens purpose. Purpose fuels resilience. This is what science calls a positive feedback loop, where the return on one habit amplifies the next. You don't have to master all 6 at once. Just pick one. Try it for 7 days. Track how you feel, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. And then build from there. Because staying young after 50 isn't about resisting age. It's about signaling vitality through your actions, your environment, and your mindset. Your brain is listening. Your biology is adapting. Your choices are the instructions. So here's one final challenge. Choose one of these 6 habits and start today. Morning light, a post-meal walk, a cold shower, magnesium at night, a brain-boosting meal, or a single empowering phrase. Just start. And if this message resonates with you, if you felt a shift in how you see your aging process, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone else who's ready to grow forward, not backward. This isn't about fighting age. It's about thriving through it. With grounded science, consistent action, and a clear sense of purpose. Because your best decade isn't behind you. It's waiting on the other side of your habits.